Variety gives you option. If I have options in 2 different areas, when a job opens, I can go there. If the other job opens, I can go there. One of the sad things, I talk to a lot of senior executives, and one of the questions I ask them is to say, okay, I understand what you do. Where do you want to go? What's your next step? What do you think your next job is? And what most of them say is, my next job is I'm going to replace my manager, right? I'll take my boss's seat. Well, that's not a very good answer because A, your boss is probably not going to die soon. So if you're sitting here waiting for him to die, not a very good idea. Moreover, even if he does die or leave, get a better job or a promotion or go somewhere else, and his chair is open or her chair is open, you'll suddenly realize there's not just you that were waiting for him to die. There are 8 of you waiting for him to die, everyone in the team. They're coming in every morning and saying, he's still here. Okay? They're all saying that, and therefore they're all candidates for that one chair. Plus, you will realize that the person who will get the job in the end is actually coming from another function. If you see even in Israel at the moment, one of the leading banks, you look at their top team, you will see that their top team, many of the people on their top team came from the outside. Their chief executive was a partner in the biggest accounting firm. She then came in as the head of their business division and then became the chief executive. She didn't climb up every 4 years, up one more step, one more step, one more step. I had a conversation recently with the head of human resources for one of the Israeli banks, not the 2 top ones, probably a 3rd or 4th or something like that. She came to the university to say, why are we not getting good candidates from your business school? You have the best business school in Israel, and we want MBA students, and we put job ads on your site, and no one applies. Why not? I want to understand. Can I meet with you? Yes. So she met with me and with our career advisors, blah, blah, blah. And we said, well, what are the jobs that you are taking people in for? She says, well, we have a very clear career path for our workers. You start in a branch as a person in the branch, as a teller, and then if you're a good teller, then 2 years later you move to that, and then 3 years later you move to this, and then you move to that, and then, so I said, and you really think that one of our students will start as a teller? You must be kidding. I would not recommend to anyone that comes out of our MBA program to start as a teller. She says, well, but our chief executive, that was his career path. I said, well, that's brilliant in the 60s. But we're not in the 60s if you haven't noticed. I didn't say that if you haven't noticed. I'm just saying life has changed and it's not like that. So you want to make sure that you have diversity. Third point is very important, and it's relating to you, which is international and international people are an asset. I know that many of you probably feel that you don't speak Hebrew or you don't speak Hebrew very well, and when people talk to you, they say, yeah, but we only take Israelis. Okay? One of the important things is to realize that your cultural heritage is an asset. Because everyone in Israel is desperate to break into the American or European or Asian market. We're all desperate. Everybody's sitting here. We're sitting in a tiny little country. We're all sitting in like this, crowded like that. All right, sardines in Israel, desperate to capture the world, right? And in order to capture the world, you have to have somebody who knows what the world looks like. And as a result of that, your background, if you package it, and that's the most important thing, and we'll talk about packaging in a moment, if you package yourself well, then the fact that you speak English, that you understand the culture, that you have worked in certain industries in the United States, or in Europe in some place, or in Asia if you were lucky, okay? Son of one of my close friends is just moving to Tokyo, right? He's a technical person, and Sony bought his company. That's the best career move he's ever done, because there are not a lot of Israeli, European, or American people who've actually worked in Japan, and therefore, when he finishes 3 or 4 years there, he can go anywhere in the world, and people will grab him, because that's an amazing experience. So international diversity will give you a lot of experience, and this is your opportunity to do that, to differentiate yourself, and you can do that here. and create a balance in your life. Very important. I want to say a few things about the Israeli job market. Where are we? One is, if you haven't noticed, Israel is a very small country, and it's made out of networks, of social networks. We are a very networky kind of culture. Everyone knows everyone or knows somebody that knows everyone. And therefore, that's how things work. But to some degree, that's true all over the world. People buy people. They don't buy pieces of paper. So if some of you, maybe all of you, have had the horrible experience of seeing jobs on the internet and sending your CV, and no one on the other end even bothers to say thank you, right? It just goes into a black hole. That is because on the other side, maybe you don't know, but there's a job ad, you send a job ad, on the other side, they get 800 CVs. And as a result of that, even a human being doesn't look at these CVs. They have a scanner, they take all the CVs in the scanner looks for the keywords, and then drops out maybe 10%, if you're lucky, of the CVs that came in, and only those people, somebody does a job interview with them, maybe. So as a result of that, that is not really the best way. I'm not saying don't do that. Do that, especially if you're looking for jobs where there are not a lot of applicants. But even when there are a lot of applicants, somebody was saying last week that they got 800 CVs, and he said we were looking for people with an MBA and this and that and the other. People who've never studied in university send their CVs, thinking, oh, well, maybe that will be okay. So that's not the best way to do it. It doesn't mean don't do it, but it just means that is not the highway for a career. Growing international focus, seeking employees. So the most important thing from my point of view is Israel is a very vibrant environment. If you look for opportunities, if you network, and I'm going to talk about networking in a moment, there are a lot of opportunities here if you do this right. Even though I understand, it's very hard when you're a foreigner. Trust me, I was a foreigner in London, and I know the British are considered to be really warm and open people, but still, you have to break in. Fine, but once you break in, you're in. And actually here, because of your background, if you know how to package it, it's an asset. So, some practical advice. I want to give practical advice in 4 areas. And again, don't forget, this is my practical advice. Maybe it doesn't fit you, maybe it's not what you want to do. But it is based on my experience both internationally and in Israel, in the business school, and in large organizations in the Israeli market. First thing is to say, be clear about your next step and choose a few possibilities. Like I said before, don't just wait for your boss to die. Think of what are possible jobs that you could do, that you could get into, and we'll talk about each one of these. Let's start with understand. By the way, Jill has this presentation. If you want it, ask her. She will give it to you. Send $10 to me. No. She will have it. So, let's start with understand the labor market and think of a few alternative possibilities. Understand the labor market in your field. If you're in marketing, what does the marketing market look like in Israel? And we'll talk in a moment how. How will you understand that? But you need to understand who are the big players in Israel in marketing. What kind of functions do they have? Because the functions here are not the same necessarily as the functions will be in England or France or London or New York or wherever. So understand that and think of a number of different jobs that you could have. Second thing is stay with options that build on your previous experience. The worst thing that people do sometimes, it's sometimes more middle-aged people than you, is they say, oh, I'm sick of marketing. I'm a lawyer, but I'm sick of being a lawyer. I want to do something completely different, right? How many times did I hear that? Or I'm an accountant. Okay, I just finished my accounting degree, a CPA, I worked for 2 years, it's boring, I don't want to do this, I want to do something completely different. I really advise against doing that. Because if you do that, you're throwing money down the drain. Think about the fact I live in Tel Aviv. Okay, I love the city. I live in Tel Aviv, in the center of Tel Aviv. And let's say, for some bizarre reason, a brick fell on my head, and I decided that I want to leave Tel Aviv and I want to live in a village in the countryside and grow dogs and horses. It's never going to happen. But let's assume I decided to do that. Now, I'm not going to burn down my apartment, take a new mortgage, and buy a house in the country. No, I'm going to sell my house, take the money, and then buy a house in the country. The same is true with your work experience. Your work experience is everything. Your value in the market. The question of are you going to make 10,000 shekels or 5,000 shekels a month or 40,000 shekels a month or 60,000 shekels a month all depends on your experience. Not just if you're a nice, smart, amicable person, that's nice, but that's nothing. The important thing, I mean, that's a minimum, but what's really desired is experience. People buy experience. When I hire somebody, I want to buy somebody who can do this job, who can add value to my organization. So your experience is worth money, a lot of money if you think about it over your lifetime. And therefore, deciding that you're a lawyer and you spent X years until you became a lawyer, and then you spend some years training afterwards, and then you worked as a lawyer for 3 or 4 years, and now you decided that you're bored, don't throw it in the garbage and decide you want to be a marketing person, because you're then competing with somebody who is 10 years younger than you, and you just threw 10 years of your career in the garbage. And then also people, why would somebody hire you after all this? But, just one more thing to end this thought, it doesn't mean you have to work as a lawyer. I'm not saying once you're stuck as a lawyer in a law firm, stay as a lawyer in a law firm. No. Look around and say, how can I package, that's why I use this terminology, how can I package the experience I gained as a lawyer and use it to do something different? For example, I can certainly work in the legal part of a firm, inside the firm, but let's say I don't want to do law at all because I'm bored, because I hate contracts. Why did I get into this field in the first place? Anyway, too late. But let's say I can't stand contracts anymore. I can understand it. I can't stand contracts. But anyway, you can still work in other functions. For example, you can work in purchasing. Now, purchasing sounds boring, but purchasing in large companies is a mega $1 million business because they buy mega $1 million of equipment and services and things like that. And it's a huge functioning organization. They make a lot of money. I mean, you wouldn't believe it, but purchasing functions within big companies report how much money they save the business because they got these things cheaper than other people. So purchasing is a very, but if you have a legal background and you understand negotiation, then yes, purchasing is a very good place to go. But for example, business development. Business development is also a good place to go if you're a lawyer, if you have a legal background, because it's all about buying and selling companies and making agreements, joint ventures. If you're a lawyer, if you're a business lawyer, you know about joint ventures. How do you do that, etc. I'm just showing you how you make that transition, packaging your experience. Don't throw your experience away. It's worth an immense amount, and you don't want to compete with people who are 10 years younger than you. It's not going to allow you to go very far. Third point, choose organizations that will have what you're looking for. People make, one of the mistakes that people make is that they look for jobs where the jobs exist. Oh, I saw an ad for this job, I'll apply for that job. Then tomorrow I saw an ad for that job, I'll apply for that job. No. Look the other way around. If you could get any job in the world or in Israel, where would you want to work? Define the organizations you want. And then try to convince them to take you. And that's the methodology that I am really pushing or encouraging people to do, which is define 20 organizations that you would want to work in. And in order to define that, obviously, study organizations and say, I want to work in organizations in the food industry, really. Which organizations? Big, small, medium. In which part of the food industry? In the manufacturing of the food? In the whatever, distribution of food? In the retail of food? Where do you want to work? What kind of food? Do you have that experience? You want to work in factories. Which kind of factories? Which organizations have the kind of factories that you are an expert in? And then you move. So if you know what you want, where you want to work, You're already halfway there because you know which job you want. I'm an engineer. I want to work in manufacturing. What kind of manufacturing? Is it high technology manufacturing? Everybody is with white coats, etc. Very few people, white coats, robots. No. I want to work in manufacturing where there's a lot of manual labor, a lot of uneducated people, but you look after huge teams doing what, that's where do you want to work? Once you know where you want to work, then find 20 organizations. When you find 20 organizations with that job, one of those organizations, remember the numbers, every 5 years, the chief executive is going to be thrown out the window, there will be that, there will be a ripple effect. Out of 20 organizations, 20 jobs that you're looking potentially for, 1 or 2 of them are going to be available every year, maybe 3 or 4, just because of natural turnover in the business environment. So if you know, we're going to prepare so that you know somebody to do that. One of the large organizations in Israel, about a month ago, their head of human resources called me and said, "Hi, Jonathan, our head of training and development has just left. We're looking for somebody for that job. You know us, they're clients of mine. Do you know anybody who could possibly do this job?" I said, "Yeah, I do know some people. Let me ask around." I asked around some people that I really appreciate. 3 people whose names came up that I like, I know there. I called them, I emailed them, and I sent those CVs to those people, okay? I'm sure she didn't just ask me. I'm sure she asked about 6 or 7 people like me who she likes or thinks well of. And each one of them probably gave 3 names, so she probably has 15 to 20 names already. Now, it just so happens somebody told me last week that they saw the job advertised on their job site. So they're also advertising that job. And I'm sure they got 500 CVs through that advertising. But they are going to talk, mostly, I talked to the 3 people that I sent forward, and I said, by the way, did they call you? She said, yeah. They interviewed me, and so they interviewed all 3 people that I pushed forward. I'm sure they interviewed all 15 people. Now, did they interview any of the 700 other people? Maybe 2 or 3 that were absolutely perfect. But the chances of getting a job that way, because I recommended, not because just it's me, because one of their close network recommended, are very high. Not very high, because still, as we saw, there are 15 names, only 1 person will get the job, so there's maybe 8% chance. So you don't want to wait for that 1 job. But if you do this with 20 organizations, 8%, 20 organizations, we're beginning to get to a serious probability, if you know what you want. Find people who work there and seek their advice. And that, the word advice, if there's any word that you should write to yourself, is advice. Write it on the mirror in your bathroom every day and said, whose advice am I asking today? Because if you ask people for advice, they're very happy to give you advice because it's a compliment. If somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, can you give me advice about blah, blah, blah?" It's a compliment. That means you think I'm worthwhile.